And now, imagine a moment when that permission is silently taken back. The Earth keeps spinning, but no longer to its own rhythm. Seconds accelerate, shadows grow shorter, and humanity begins to fall before it can ever catch up with time. Everything seemed normal that morning. The sun rose, people went to work, coffee was brewed. But that day, something was different, something small. So small it almost went unnoticed. The Earth had spun just a little faster on its axis, only 1.4 milliseconds. But according to scientists, this was only the beginning. For the past 1,000 years, the Earth's rotation has been almost perfectly stable. Time itself was built on that steady rhythm. Days, hours, seasons, even life as we know it, all structured around that cycle. But now, the rhythm was shifting, and humanity was starting to feel it. Nights grew slightly shorter, daylight arrived just a bit earlier, and time, though invisible, was slipping. When a planet begins to move in ways it shouldn't, it's not just a physical anomaly, it's a sign that the entire system is starting to break. When the Earth begins to spin a little faster, the first effects are barely noticeable. But physics doesn't stay silent. A faster rotation means a stronger centrifugal force, and that leads to weaker gravity, especially around the equator. People begin to feel lighter, not walking, but almost gliding as they move. But the change isn't just physical. You can feel it in time itself. Days are no longer 24 hours. First, seconds vanish, then minutes begin to disappear. And technology can't keep up. Satellites, GPS systems, communication networks, all calibrated to Earth's stable rotation. But that stability is gone. Hundreds of satellites start sending signals to the wrong locations. Airplane routes begin to drift, navigation systems grow confused, and slowly, everything begins to lose its sense of direction. The increase in Earth's rotation speed doesn't just affect gravity. The atmosphere itself becomes unstable. Wind patterns begin to shift. Weather systems grow chaotic. In some places, hurricanes strike every week. In others, droughts appear without warning or season. The rhythm of ocean currents is thrown off. Tides become impossible to predict, and global sea levels begin to rise and fall unevenly. Animals lose their way. Migratory birds, whales, insects, creatures that survive by the slightest cues begin to drift apart. As nature loses its rhythm, life begins to lose its direction. But what about the human body? We don't just think about time. We feel it. Our biological clock, our circadian rhythm, is deeply connected to the Earth's rotation. But as that rotation speeds up, a deep internal confusion begins. Sleep becomes fragmented. Mealtimes lose their rhythm. Hormonal balances are thrown into chaos. Chronic fatigue spreads, depression rises, perception begins to break down. One morning, humanity wakes up, exhausted, yet unable to sleep. The human body doesn't adapt to the new rhythm. It begins to fall apart. And for humanity, a great collapse begins. Time wasn't just physical, it was also a construct of the mind. The human brain functioned through rhythms, through cycles. It woke with the sunlight and rested with the darkness. But as the Earth began to spin faster, that natural cycle started to break down. One morning, people could no longer tell if it was night or day. The clocks were still ticking, but nothing was happening when it was supposed to. Nights grew shorter, daylight seemed to vanish, and with it came a condition known as psychosis, a collapse of time perception, a breakdown of memory, a blurring of the line between consciousness and reality. Minds began to fracture. People lost track of the time of day, and some even forgot who they were. Yes, the Earth was still spinning, but nothing else was staying in place. Everything that once set the rhythm of daily life, traffic lights, work hours, school bells, was built around the Earth's rotation. Now, that rotation was swallowing the system whole. Metropolises turned into chaos. People couldn't make it to work. School schedules became impossible to fix. Flight plans collapsed. Trains arrived too early, or not at all. Power grids couldn't keep up with the new order. Even during dark hours, cities were left in the shadows. Once, these cities never slept. Now, they were always awake. but completely sleepless. And over time, people began to flee the cities, because in this new reality, cities no longer served the needs of people. They had become concrete shells, structures out of sync with the human world. While humanity struggled, nature quietly began to adapt. Some animal species started evolving to match shorter cycles. Nocturnal birds now sang during the day. Certain plants withered before they could follow the light. Creatures living near the equator abandoned their usual habits as gravity itself began to shift. And more importantly, the climate began to move. Wind patterns, ocean currents, even the seasons were being rewritten. Humanity watched as the environmental order it had known for thousands of years slowly began to change. But this watching had become a helpless kind of witnessing. The Earth was finding a new balance. The question was, would humanity be part of that new balance or left outside of it? Clocks, calendars, time zones. They were all just abstractions designed to match a spinning planet. But now that planet is rewriting its own rules. As Earth continues to spin faster, humanity will try to invent new ways to measure time. But maybe the problem is that we ever tried to measure it at all. Maybe life only exists in what we feel. And no matter how fast the world turns, some things can only be understood by slowing down. If you lose time, you lose everything. But maybe time itself never asked anything from us.